Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Mastering Life Beyond High School. Welcome back. We're so pleased to be speaking to you today after a few months break. I hope you all enjoyed your summer and you're ready to begin the fall, whatever your schedule calls for you to be initiated with. I'm Barbara Pasternak, founder and chair of Diabetes Hope Foundation, and I am thrilled to be here with our wonderful panelists and my co-chair, Rav. Before I begin the program, I just want to tell you how proud we are to announce that since April 2020, we have hosted 24 webinars and have managed to reach almost 33,000 people with a 62% viewership turnover rate. And we're really, really pleased. We began the webinar because we felt that our diabetes community was thrown into, as everybody else, with COVID. And we wanted to create a safe place for kids to talk to each other, to help each other, to discuss certain issues that we've managed to address over the last year and a half. So we engage with the diabetes community by coming together and providing really vulnerable youth at this time with tools and resources to navigate through this pandemic and to stay grounded, try to stay grounded as everyone is, especially our population is dealing with transitioning. And transitioning is tough enough, but you throw COVID into the mix and it just creates a huge implosion. We have resources, which we'll talk about after, and we just want to right now welcome you all to this wonderful webinar that we have organized today. It's really dealing with youth living with diabetes who are transitioning from high school to post-secondary school, and how this transition has really evolved throughout the last year and a half. A year ago, as I was just discussing with our wonderful panelists, that we actually did a very similar webinar about a year ago, less than a year ago. And you'll hear the dialogue has completely changed. Even though we are still in COVID, we're, I think, coming into our fourth flare up. And many of these panelists have first experienced it in their grade 12 year, and now they're going into second year. So we'd be very interested, and we can't wait to hear from how this transition has really changed, how unique each year and each time that this transition we're going through is unique, and how the wonderful tidbits that they have really taken away. So our panelists are studying different programs and balancing a variety of activities outside of school. But before we begin, we'd like to thank Abbott for sponsoring our webinar tonight. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce Ravishing Rav, our wonderful co-host.
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Rav. I've had type 1 diabetes since I was 2 years old. And I am the only person in my very large family who has it, which made it, kind of challenging and isolating growing up with it. But I was lucky enough to receive my DHF scholarship in 2013, which was the first time I actually got to be in a room of folks who understood diabetes, who were comfortable sharing their experiences. So it was kind of a life-changing moment for me. And since 2013, I have been in different roles with DHF, such as a mentor, speaking at symposiums, and I've been their program director for a little over a year now. I love these webinars because I get to connect with so many amazing folks, such as DHF alumni, parents who have children who have diabetes. So it's a really good time, and I am really passionate about the webinars. So kind of going off of what Barbara said, our panelists tonight are trailblazers with online learning and simultaneously managing their diabetes. Due to the pandemic, they've had to let go of certain expectations as reality unfolded a lot differently. Students got to spend some quality time at home with their families. Others got to go live on residence or off-campus housing later on in the semester, all while trying to make friends from a distance. Now, many things are out of their control, and one thing they can control is staying optimistic, trying their best, and focusing on their grades. Now, some of our alumni have said it's really challenging to get together virtually and complete group projects, and online learning is challenging because there are distractions and no one is monitoring you. Our alumni had to learn to adapt their hobbies and passions in the pandemic, from dancing to playing the piano to meditation and working out. Now, when we're talking about our feelings and experiences, it helps others to understand our viewpoint and support our choices. Now, an example of this is a few weeks ago in July, we had a meet and greet between mentors and mentees. And I was feeling a bit weird about sensors, but talking to some of the mentors and mentees actually convinced me to try something new, try a new sensor, and now things are pretty good for me. So it's always great to get together and chat and learn about different technologies and people's different experiences. Now, as we all know, living with diabetes is a 24/7 job, and those living with it are the ones making the decisions. Now, if you throw in the transition to post-secondary school and a raging pandemic, it's a lot of adjusting to do. One person may face one challenge that someone else might never have to deal with. Now, it's essential to respect our bodies, our space, and our feelings. And as always, the goal of this webinar is to connect and learn from one another and to have some fun. So please ask your questions and share your comments. We look forward to having you join us in tonight's webinar, whether you're watching right now or later on. And so let's start by meeting our lovely panelists for the evening. So first, Hala, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hala. I will be entering my 4th year in the Human Health Science program at Ontario Tech. So it's really nice. Even at this point, I'll be able to reflect on how my diabetes management has changed with university up until this point. I was lucky enough to have received the DHF scholarship back in 2018. I was also diagnosed with type 1 at the age of 13. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of the mentorship program. It's my 2nd year now as a mentor, and it's really, really nice to be able to speak with students during their transition and assist them, because for me, I know that it was very challenging. So it's a very, very great program.
Thanks, Hala. So next we have Asta.
Hi, everyone. My name is Asta, as Rob just said, and I'm going into my 3rd year of health sciences at McMaster University. I just want to share I'm part of the McMaster Diabetes Association as well, and I'll sprinkle some tidbits along the way about that. So there's lots of support on campus, off campus, even right now, right? I was diagnosed with type 1 at the age of 5, and I got my scholarship in 2019. And I really think COVID hit during my 1st year, and that same resilience that carries us through diabetes, I think it's the same that will get us through this pandemic and whatever may come in the future. So I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Asta. And last but not least, we have Abby.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby. I am a 2020 DHF scholarship recipient. I'm going into my 2nd year at York University in the dance program. COVID hit when I was in grade 12. And for those students who were in Ontario, we all know of the strike that happened in the beginning of the year. So that took some time out of the classroom for me. And then obviously COVID hit in March, which then kind of took away from the second half of the year. So transitioning now going into my 2nd year of university, it's going to be a very interesting experience going back to in-person learning from being online for the last 18 months. So I'm very excited and happy to share my experience with everyone.
Thanks, Abby. So now we will get started. Barbara, take it away.
Yes, hi there again. Very interesting and lovely ladies, and thank you again for sharing your experiences. These are just questions that Rav and I put together, and they're just basic questions, and you can just voice your opinion. I know you'll be honest, and you'll just be very informative. What are some of the tips and tricks you learned as you prepared for your first semester when you first transitioned to post-secondary? And you can actually compare it to if you got late. Some of your ladies are going to 2nd year from your 1st year to this year. Even though we're still in the pandemic, it's in a different level. We do have vaccines and masks and prevention, which has not stopped the variant. But if you can maybe do that comparison, has anything changed, or are you planning on making any significant changes as you head into this new semester? So Abby, you can start if you like.
So for me, going from dancing online to now dancing in person will be a huge change. Online, I had to figure out with my program how we were going to build a ballet bar all together online for our classes, and now being able to kind of have that stress taken away and go in person and not worry about, where we're dancing, the space that we have or lack thereof. I'm very much looking forward in terms of academics going back in person. But in terms of diabetes management, because I haven't had the university experience in person yet dealing with diabetes, that I know will take some adjusting. And yeah.
So we talked about it briefly yesterday about how you were able to build a ballet bar, and some people never have even thought of building a ballet bar, but it's vital to your course and to your training. Could you quickly share that, how the result was so positive from your collaboration with your
Yeah, so our profs were still quite strict about making sure that we wear the correct attire, making sure our hair is in the right style. And for our ballet class, we still had to have a proper ballet bar at our correct height for our bodies. So my program, again, is very small. It's about only 40 or 50 people. So we all kind of got together and started to brainstorm, how are you making your ballet bar? Oh, that's a good idea. I'll try that. So for me, a wood stick and some twine became my best friend, because I needed to make sure that it was mobile, because I needed it up for certain classes, but down because then it took up space for some of my other classes. So collaborating with everyone was a huge lifesaver.
So that certainly has taught you for future projects or challenges that I'm sure you'll encounter in your young life and professional life, how important, I guess, communication and collaboration is with the folks that you're involved with.
Absolutely. In person, online, reach out to people, because they're more often than not, there are other people in the same boat as you and probably struggling with the same stuff that you're going through as well.
Thank you. That was excellent. Thank you, Abby. Hala, could you share your experience, please?
Yeah, being in the health science program, there are labs, and I did find that even though I did plan and have a snack before my lab, I ended up going low. But thankfully, before I had my labs, this was actually in third year, when everything was online, and then I will be registered again to have a lab in the fall semester. But something that I wanted to point out is how important it is to approach the TA beforehand. So sending an email and mentioning that you're living with type 1 and that you would like to meet and discuss with the TA some things that you would like them to know. And I remember doing that before the pandemic, and it was really, really nice, because that way they're aware that if I walk out of the lab, I'm not leaving the lab. I'm just leaving for a second, maybe to drink some juice and come back. During my third year, I did have a lab that was completely online, of course, with everything being online, but I didn't have that issue because everything was at home. But now going into my fourth year in the first semester, that's something that I'm going to be doing. Once I'm able to see who my TA is, I'm going to email that individual. But I think it's really important to bring that up. You don't necessarily need to, let's say, to a professor if it's a really big lecture hall, because they usually don't mind if you're eating something or drinking something. But in the labs, it's really, really strict, where you cannot consume that, again, because dealing with chemicals and things like that, it's really dangerous. So it's really important in a lab setting. And something with that too, when I would attend those labs and stay longer at the university, it's really important to pack like a lunch or have more snacks, and also tweaking it to have more fiber and more protein. That was really important for me. And that way I have peace of mind. I can study and do what I need to do, and I don't have to sit there worrying about my blood sugar. That was like a big issue for me at the time, especially when I was walking around back and forth from my classes to the library. So I thought that was really useful. But again, it's really, really important to be upfront and don't feel shy to discuss these kind of things with your TA or professor, because it's better sooner than later. God forbid, like an emergency were to happen. So I think that's something I encourage those who are having labs, and again, something that you can't eat in a certain setting, maybe tutorials or labs. It's really, really important to have that discussion.
So Hala, are you learning in a hybrid environment moving for starting in September?
Yeah, I'm taking a course that will be online for lectures, but it will be in person for tutorials and labs. So I definitely need to have that conversation with the TA. I'm not sure if it's the same one for the tutorial and the lab, but it is a conversation that I need to have once I know who that individual is.
And how do you think you'll be able to manage it? Virtual learning at home, what you were doing, or not participating physically was easy. You would just roll out of bed and roll into in front of the camera. But how do you think what's your feelings about that?
Yeah, something else that I found is I'm not used to studying or doing this kind of things at home, and everyone else as well. I cannot focus in my room because I just want to go back to bed. So I found that changing into clothing that I would wear if it was a normal day, that's a big one. As a girl, maybe a little bit of makeup, but just overall, just wearing like a t-shirt, some jeans, that's a big thing. Don't just wear pajamas, even if your camera's off. And sometimes I would go to the library. I know that you had to wear masks. It did get a bit difficult when you have to wear the mask at all times and you're studying for like 3 hours with the mask on, but that would help me because I like that work environment. But again, if you don't have a choice and you have to be at home, just put on some work clothing. And I found that changed my mood. And having your routine, like your breaks, just like you would if it was a regular school day. It's not any different, right?
Yeah, I just want to give you just an interesting piece. I've been doing a lot of interviewing for my business, and some of the interviewers that I'm interviewing, the gentlemen were wearing suits and ties, which, even in normal times, nobody wore suits and ties. And this lady I interviewed today was wearing sculptured pearls and a little jacket, and who knew what was underneath beyond. But I'm telling you, it was very respectful. And as you said, it's something you're respecting yourself by making an effort to get into a learning mode. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of people working from home, and it's, if you're feeling laid back, your work is sort of laid back. But I thank you. That was very perceptive of you. Thank you for that. Okay, Asta. Yes, Asta. Good.
Yeah.
Give us your perspective.
My perspective. Okay, so I think for me, the transition from summer to school is already, without the pandemic in the mix, is already different because my sleep schedule is all messed up. I'm waking up at like 10 a.m. And if I have a class at 7:30, I have to change that sleep schedule, right? And I also noticed that my basal levels or rates are always all over the place because in the summer, I'm really active. I like to go out, maybe play around. But then with online school, I'm sitting down for like 7 hours a day. And it's a complete flip, right? So I would say start easing off from that summer routine maybe a week before. Don't wait until September 6th, like the day before. Slowly kind of fix that sleep schedule, get used to a different kind of activity. That's what works for me now, regardless of if it's in person or if it's just online all day. For me, it's going to be online all day. So hopefully what I'm planning on kind of changing, I guess, from my last year experience is being more active, right? It doesn't, just because you're in an online school doesn't mean you don't go outside, go take a walk maybe, or, do something physical, and just having more balance, right? Because I like what Hala said about, when you're in your bedroom, if your desk is in your bedroom, you kind of get that mushy boundary. You don't know when you're supposed to relax versus when you're doing work and when you're maybe being social.
Yeah.
So that's my tidbit.
So are you saying that when, it's 9 hours of work, you don't stand up and walk around, or?
Oh, no, stand up and walk around.
You have time to do that because, a lot of cramping there.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even like going for a 5-minute walk, it just clears your head just to get out of your area, your space. It's really important. And also it moves your body and the oxygen starts flowing a little better. And
Right.
Sometimes it's hard to pull yourself from the seat because you're just so into it that you don't want to leave the, seriousness of what you're doing. But yeah, that's very good. So if you were to compare last year to this year, what would you say is the difference as you're entering, the next year, this year?
Yeah, like I said, I'm still going to be online just like last time. But what I'm going to do is change my schedule. So I say, okay, I'm going to go work out for an hour. Or I'm
Okay.
going to go, when I take lunch, I'm not going to eat lunch in my bedroom. I'm going to go sit with my parents in my dining room, walk around the house a little bit more, right? Be more active, I think, is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, that's great. Good. Rav, I know that you started a new job. Congratulations. And I know we're just making this quick announcement that you'll be leaving the foundation, sadly, but
I'm
not.
still here. I'm like a ghost. Like
I
you'll never
know
get
you're
rid
going to
of
be
me.
with us forever. So what is, are you doing are you working online now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a little bit of backstory. So I finished my undergrad in 2020. And so when we were all hit with that, okay, lockdowns happening in March, I was learning from home and then I was working from home. And then I did another short program from home. And now I'm still working from home. And I am unfortunately blessed with having little space in my house. So I do work out of my bedroom, but I'm like, okay, I need to be very minimalist about how I approach this. So I have like a little collapsible desk and a chair that I can just like fold up and tuck away in a corner. So, I can try, like my room doesn't really feel like my bedroom. But then at night, it's my bedroom. But Asta mentioned a really good point. I try to like make my own meals and eat them in different rooms. And I'm also really lucky. I'm saying that sarcastically because basically my entire family's at home, working from home or recovering from injuries at home. So I am always blessed with the Rav, do this, Rav, get that, and I'm in a meeting or I'm doing something else. So, setting those boundaries has been a little bit challenging, but you know what? It makes me laugh once the moment's over. So at least I got a good laugh from it.
That's wonderful. Humor conquers everything. Absolutely.
It's my only coping mechanism. And like sometimes you just gotta sit back and be like, this is really silly and just how absurd everything is and just laugh through it. And you seem a bit crazy, but join the club. So it's okay.
Yeah. That's amazing. So all of you have really benefited. You're doing continuous improvement as we move into the next stage of the pandemic, which is good for your health, good for your mental state, and good for your professional academic, I'm sure, because once your mind and your health are sort of calm and in sync, then everything else will follow in a good direction. That's wonderful. You've given stellar information, ladies. Congratulations. Okay, Rav, you're up next.
Okay, and so kind of hopping off of that point, I know we touched upon this a little bit, but I just want to take this time to acknowledge that, not only are you like, it's not just being in school, right? We have classes and we have tests, which are different than finals. We have group projects, which is a whole other ball game, tutorials, labs, and like, managing those extracurricular activities. And as I mentioned, there are tons of distractions at home that are disrupting school life and sometimes even your own diabetes management. So do you have any tools or resources that you've used to kind of help you out when navigating both like academic life and diabetes? And we'll start with Asta.
I wouldn't call it a tool, but a strategy that I have is just changing your mindset. So sometimes I used to think of diabetes as a separate responsibility, like on a checklist, diabetes is one thing and my test and blah, blah, blah is another thing. But really they're so interconnected, right? Like if you're not feeling well, if your blood sugar is high or low, you can't go through with whatever your academics are. So one was the mindset change that, okay, diabetes is a priority and it's right up there with the academics, right? And the other thing was whenever I'm in a lecture or if I'm in the middle of a test, you need to do what you need to do, right? That comes first. So if you need to grab a snack, there's always like a protocol. So if you're not allowed food, you can raise your hand, ask to leave the room, right? And also just educating people, I think, is also important because if I'm grabbing a snack and I'm not, I'm the only person, some people might stare if I'm grabbing my pump. So just explaining to the people you're around, like how I gave the example of the lab, right? You're with the group of the same people. So just kind of telling them beforehand, like, I might do this. This is what my pump looks like. This is what it's for. I think using people as resources is also really key as well.
Yeah, and finding like it can be really awkward when you start kind of advocating for yourself first, but eventually you just kind of get into the swing of things and like you kind of care less about what you think people perceive diabetes as. And kind of going back to Hala's point, when you talk to a TA or a professor about being like, hey, if I'm going to leave the room, I'm going to give you like a thumbs up to let you know I'm okay, but I'm just, dealing with something else. I'm someone who used to be so scared of talking to TAs and profs because I thought they were so intimidating, but I don't know where this shift happened in me where I was like, boom, okay, we're going to have this conversation whether they want to or not, and then just like stomp my way up there and, let them know like what's going on with me. And yeah, so I encourage everybody to do that, even if they're in virtual classes as well, because I don't know if you have to write midterms or finals online, like with the camera on, because I've had to before. So I've had to communicate that to professors. So thank you, Asta. Next, Abby.
So more of a tool that some schools provide. I definitely recommend that all students look into their university or college if they have like any like accessibility services for their students. I'm registered with York Universities, and so far they've been pretty good. There have been some hiccups with most things, of course, but they give you some extra accommodations. For me, for test writing, I get time and a half to what everyone else gets. And unlike you, Rav and Hala, you guys are like so upfront with your profs and like TAs. I'm one of those people that are like very like shy, and I just like don't like talking to them. So for people who are a little bit more on the shy side, you can send your TA and your prof your letter of accommodation or anything kind of like that. And you don't even have to get into it. I'm diabetic. If you feel comfortable, you're more than welcome to. But at least for York, that's not a requirement. And I found that LOA has been, even online, a huge lifesaver. And you can get stuff added for in-person versus online. So definitely something to look into.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So DHF has our transition guide, which features, I believe, 191 schools across the provinces with, all the accessibility programs and supports that are available. It's available as a free PDF on our website, so feel free to check that out. We are currently in the process of revising the 6th edition. But yeah, definitely if you're feeling a little bit more on the shy side, it's a good way to go about it that way. And even if you are more vocal about it, go through your accessibility supports too. Because even if you don't need extra time for a test, it's always good to give them that heads up that, hey, I need to have my juice on standby, for example.
Ralph, can I just ask one question? You're talking about the accessibility program, which we've been advocating for the last 8 years to students. Many kids don't know about it entering their first year of university. That was one of the main reasons why we put together the transition guide. There are 3 or 4 points that are really important. I don't know if Rav, if you remember what they are. The accessibility program gives students, I know they fast track for living in accommodations in dorm. They get fast tracked, shortlisted.
Mm-hmm.
They can get a computer if they want, or free coffee. No, the better the coffee. No, they could get a free computer. Some universities give a free computer. Do you remember the other couple? Because I know there's some really.
The ones that come to mind are for test writing. So like Abby mentioned, you can get time and a half or sometimes 2 hours, depending on the university or college. It is true about residence. For me, when I first went to residence, it helped me get a fridge in my room because I personally did not want to leave my insulin in the common fridge. I felt more comfortable having my juice and insulin right by my bed. What else is there?
Also, if you're feeling ill, you can have your exam teacher reschedule for the next day. That's another thing. Yeah,
writing your exam in a different room. That also kind of goes along with the extra time. Again, so don't feel ashamed about going through accessibility services. It's there for a reason. So, take advantage of it. It's one of the perks of having diabetes, if you will.
You don't just have to have diabetes. You can even have migraine headaches. You can even have any kind of physical ailment or any mental, anything that you feel will take you away from your studies or not allow you to write your exams on particular days. I mean, if just what happens, if you're not feeling 100%, you are allowed extra time and you're allowed to have a reschedule, but you have to join the accessibility services at the university. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
So lastly, we have Hala.
There's two main things that I want to touch on. So the first one, I don't know if anyone else does this, but it's time blocking your day. I know it can get really strict, but when I get really overwhelmed, when I start to get more involved with extracurriculars and other things, I found that when you time block your day down to the minute, I know it seems like crazy, but I feel like you just see your day and you really make the most out of it. And it even shows you visually, like, I only have 3 hours to do this. Make the most out of those 3 hours. Don't be on your phone during that time. You're not going to get it done within that, time frame. So maybe that's something to try out. But that really helped me out when I was really, really overwhelmed by everything, especially during the end of the semester when you have all the final assignments and then your final midterm, and you're preparing for, exam season. So that was really useful. Another thing too is being at university, you're more likely, I feel like, maybe to eat maybe more junk food or just fast food restaurants. I don't know if it's the culture too, but there's an app called MyFitnessPal. I thought that was really useful for me. I know that you could search directly in Google and then there's like a calorie and it shows carbohydrate and all that and fiber and you can deduct that, which is great. But that app is great. It really helped me out a lot. And it's really, really nice. It even shows the amount of fat. So maybe if you want to extend your bolus a little bit, but it's really, really useful. Another thing too is for me, when my blood sugar goes up and down, it really affects my mood and the way that I think. I get very irritated. So it's the days where you have a lot to get done, it's good to understand what you're consuming, because if you're doing something with, like more sugar, less fiber, things like that, your blood sugar is going to be like a roller coaster. And it's just, I don't know, it just really affects me in a negative way. So even looking at the glycemic index, it's easily accessible online. And for reference, like basically a higher value above 70 means it's bad. So it's going to obviously negatively affect your blood sugar. So that's something that's really useful. I know that if you were to speak with the registered dietitian, they would go through this kind of things, but you could figure it out on your own. And it's really nice to see, to get a better idea. But I thought that was really useful for me, because if you're spending long hours at the university and there's so much to do, I don't have time to constantly worry about my blood sugar. But that's a whole other conversation with the CGM.
Holly, you mentioned a really good point with like MyFitnessPal, because recently I have been like, okay, like Indian home cooked food, I think I'm just guessing what I'm eating in terms of portion. So it's actually held me accountable for being like, okay, what am I eating here? What realistically, how much insulin should I be taking? So rather than like rage bolusing or guessing, it's like I'm holding myself accountable to be like, okay, what am I really eating here? Because it's really hard sometimes with home cooked food, especially if your mom makes it and forgets that you need to know the carbs in it.
I hope she's not listening.
No, she's not. I hope not.
Yeah, so MyFitnessPal is perfect. Actually, when we were putting together our transition in the kitchen and breaking down the caloric and sugar and the grams and everything else, I think MyFitnessPal was it was a tool that was used, right, Rob? Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was our saving grace.
Yeah, it was saving grace. Great. Okay, is it my turn?
It is.
Okay. Something that has been on everybody's mind and brain and soul is not just people with diabetes, but the pandemic. I think mental health has been worse than the pandemic. I think mental health is something that has created so many unresolved issues for so many people, youth, young kids. And I mean, I don't want to really get into it because it's another discussion completely, but just talking to you lovely ladies, do you believe that there's a relationship between mental health and your diabetes management? And if so, what are some of the tools and resources you use to help avoid diabetes distress, or just to pull out to make you feel better? Hala, you can start.
I definitely think that there is. I have experienced this personally with myself, but if you do think about it, like, we are making decisions every second of the day that is like life or death, right? If you give too much insulin, low blood sugar, that can lead to a whole other thing, or hyperglycemia over time, and diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA. So it is pretty stressful. What I found that was useful, though, is, for me, it's expressing it. So I'd speak to my mom about it. It is difficult to speak about it with those that don't live with diabetes, because, again, they can't really relate, or I don't know, maybe they'll change the topic to something else that's bothering them, but they don't really listen. So if you do know someone that's living with type 1, it's nice, because you both can actually relate to each other, but not everyone has that. The other thing is maybe journaling, if you like to do that, or there's other ways to kind of express yourself. But I think it's really important to express it and don't just keep it all in. Yeah, and again, that's why the mentorship program is absolutely amazing. And there was another thing that I created at my school, also another club raising diabetes awareness, to also create like a safe environment for those. So we'll talk about that a bit later. But I thought that was really important, because I didn't know anyone with type 1 to really be able to share experiences other than in high school, maybe like one person, and another one from like a summer school that I took, but that was about it, right? So it's yeah, there definitely is a link, but again, being able to express yourself is, I think, very key, and it helped me a lot.
Do you have a network of friends who you can share with who have diabetes? Or
Yeah, so through the club that I created, I met 3 other people who are living with type 1, which is really nice. And we have a group chat, and we actually send each other memes regarding diabetes. So that's so funny. But, that's someone who can actually relate. Like, if I were sending my mom, she's like, what the hell is this? I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, so I thought that was really nice. But it was because I was open about it too, which was important. Because if you just kind of keep quiet, no one will know, unless maybe they'll see your pump or like your CGM, right? Like, I can keep that on my arm here, but I don't know. I think that there is like a silver lining, but I thought that was useful, again, like being open about it.
so you said that, are you talking about the diabetes club at McMaster that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. I go to a different university, Ontario Tech University. They didn't have any club whatsoever advocating for diabetes. So I created a club going into my 3rd year, and that was finally the first club that, brought diabetes awareness and created that community for those living with type 1 or even type 2, or there's different subtypes, but that's how I was able to cope with it, and again, being open. And then I found other people who were living with type 1, and they were a little bit more shy to talk about it, but I feel like getting that conversation going made a big difference, and made lasting friendships. So right now she graduated, but we still keep in contact, which is really nice.
Great. Is this club still happening? Is it still active?
Yeah, it is. We're hoping to do I'm running the club again this year, but of course I'm graduating, so the vice president will take over. But we're hoping to collaborate with the Diabetes Hope Foundation this year. I'm going to contact Brad. We're getting a little bit later.
I was just wondering if, yeah, for sure, the more the merrier. Absolutely. Well, kudos to you for creating something that is needed and that you benefited absolutely with other. Great. Asta, your turn, your feelings.
What I love about DHF is that it's one of the only diabetes organizations that deals with that emotional side of diabetes, right? Like, a lot of them are focused on research and the physical aspects, but truly at 100%, there's a relationship between mental health and diabetes management, right? It can get a lot sometimes. So just like how I think support systems are incredibly important, people, right? Like other diabetics, even my mentor from DHF, my parents, my friends, right? Just talking it out, or even doing something totally unrelated, right? Going for a walk is sometimes helpful. But I'm also a plan and data type of person. So if, let's say, I don't know, my blood sugar goes low every single night and I wake up grumpy, and that's what's kind of messing up my whole day, I'll go back, look at my data and say, okay, what do I need to do to avoid this low that's happening every single time at this time of night, right? Wow. So sometimes going back to the data actually helps. And you can totally consult your nurses, right? They're just an email or phone call away, even endos. So that's my.
Were you able to resolve your issue?
You know what? I didn't even know that it was happening at the same time. But when you look at the data, you realize, oh, there's a pattern there, and there's something we can do to fix it. So
That's great. So now you don't wake up grumpy. You're ready to party. Good for you. You solved your problem. That's amazing. That's great.
I'm sure there'll be many more, and we'll just keep doing the same thing.
Well,
right?
you can address it and you can be proactive. And
Right.
good for you. That's great. Thank you. Abby, your feelings with mental health and diabetes.
For me personally, I feel like there is a correlation for when I'm stressed, my blood sugars go high, like sky high. And unless I'm able to kind of take out that stressor that's just overwhelming me, my blood sugars just will not go down. So a few things that I found have helped throughout this online year, just finding a small activity that just takes your mind off of everything. Like, you correct your high, but then you're not worrying about what your sensor says or what the glucometer says. You kind of just ignore it and you just focus in on an activity. And it can be, for me, I found that beading and making necklaces and anklets and bracelets was like a lifesaver, or reading a book, or just putting in headphones and just listening to music, finding like one song that would be your song and like your anthem. And whenever you need to like decompress, that is what you go to. And I found that, 30 minutes of doing my beading, that stressor has kind of been relieved, and I start to see my blood sugars gradually go down. So yeah, just not worrying too much about what the sensor says, as long as you correct, you give yourself insulin, you drink some water, go for a walk if you need, but then don't worry so much about what it says. Just take your mind off, take a breath, and kind of relax for a little bit, and everything will, in the end, be okay.
Wonderful advice. Wonderful. Are you selling your beaded products, or are you just giving them away as gifts? Or?
I'm not selling them. I give them to friends and family. But yeah.
Well, maybe we can talk about doing a fundraiser for Diabetes Month on those.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. That's great. Rav, I know I'd love to hear your feelings about this.
Yeah, so yeah, it's no secret, diabetes, mental health, they go hand in hand. Like Abby, when I get super stressed out, my blood sugars are out of whack. Like, for example, I don't really eat breakfast. I don't have an appetite. I'll usually start off my day with a green tea. So let's say if I wake up at like an 8 or a 7 or something, I just have a cup of green tea. And if I have a stressful morning, my blood just is like, it just goes up. And I'm like, cool, like, what happens. And so it's finding ways to be proactive about that and try to mitigate those types of problems, because when it happens day after day, it can be so exhausting. And like it's been touched upon before, finding your people is so important. So throughout the pandemic, I've met a ton of new folks who have diabetes, specifically type 1. There's been so many different learning opportunities for me to engage with folks who have different types of diabetes. And again, as someone who didn't have that growing up, it's like the best thing for me to just meet people and just vent and learn from others. And like Abby said, really finding something, an activity that you can claim as yours, to kind of tune out the noise that diabetes brings is really important. So for me, I've been getting into embroidery kits. All I'm missing is a rocking chair at this point, and like someone playing like the fiddle in the background. But it's something that brings me a lot of like peace and calm. So I'm very grateful that I was just stumbling upon Etsy and was like, I'm gonna try this because I've really enjoyed it. Not that great at it, but I'm working on it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you all found your good, happy place to be, in order to control whatever is happening in your body. You're managing that. That's fantastic. Okay, I know, Rav, you want to talk about the next topic, and I know we only have 15 minutes, so. Yeah,
so this will be the last question. I'm going to kind of summarize all the questions we have left. So we've kind of talked about, diabetes being both kind of invisible yet a very visible disease. And, there can be a lot of awkward moments at the start when you're talking to TAs or you're making new friends, and if they see your pump or they see your CGM. So it's a lot of what I like to call educational moments where we have to like teach others about it. And it can get really awkward during nights out or, you know, social events such as weddings. Those are literally like the worst time. Like,
5-day weddings especially, right?
Yeah, I love weddings, but like that's a time where like extended family are like, Rev, let me annoy you by asking this very ignorant question. So how do you manage, you know, the visibility of diabetes in all these different circumstances? So we'll start off with Hala.
So I really don't mind my CGM showing, but my pump, I definitely get uncomfortable because it is bigger. I'm using the Omnipod Dash. So what I do is before the event, what I do is I change it to be in a different position on my body, depending on what I'm wearing. So I prefer to kind of cover both, but again, if it shows, what can I do? But I do plan to wear it a different way with my outfit. The other thing is you have to always keep on hand fast acting glucose, like carbohydrates. I can't do the Dex 4 tablets. I can't chew on that anymore. I just don't have the energy when I'm low. So I
get that.
Use. Yeah. So what I do is instead of being frustrated that I can't carry this little cute purse, I changed my mindset. So something that Pasta she mentioned. So I changed my mindset and I bring a different, like, I bought myself like a nice purse that fits with any outfit, and it's big enough and it doesn't bother me. Like, this fits what I need to keep myself healthy, you know, and goes with a lot of the different outfits, but it is more casual. So that's, you know, that's something else. But keeping like granola bars with high protein, that's a big one. I'm telling you, a lot of protein to keep the blood sugar stable. There are these like Nature Valley granola bars with like 11 grams. Absolutely amazing. Really, really helpful. But also tweaking your basal. So if you know that you're going to be on your feet, especially at a wedding, like dancing, you can tweak that 3 hours before to have it in effect. And you know your body, like even if you go to exercise, you know generally how much you would reduce the basal. But again, it's still difficult with diabetes. Every day is different. What works yesterday is not going to work today. So it's always trial and error. But we always, again, have to change your mindset and just do the best that we can.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just finding that like strength to just kind of get through the moment. Like whenever my pump goes off, if I have a low reservoir, like my one cousin will be like, is Kim possible here? So now we've made it like a cute moment. And then when my Dexcom goes off, everyone's like, is there a fire? And I'm like, yes, I'm here. So it's just, again, finding that humor to kind of redirect the conversation to get through it definitely helps. Abby, what about you?
So because I'm in a dance program, one of our requirements is that we have to wear a bodysuit for all of our dance classes. When I used to dance at my studio before I kind of graduated from there and moved on to university, I was totally cool with all of my friends seeing my pump, my CGM, because they kind of grew up with me and saw me through the stages. I'm not gonna lie, going back to in-person with people that, you know, I've met online, I told them that I have diabetes, I've shown them pictures of what my pump and CGM look like, but going in person and seeing it for their own eyes, and that's a little nerve-wracking to me. But, you know, going nights out, for all of the type 1s out there who also have celiac, like myself, finding restaurants that have gluten-free food that you don't really have to worry about cross-contamination, because cross-contamination as a type 1 diabetic after you've bolused and you're throwing up your meal is a very big danger. You don't have the sugars that you bolused for, and then trying to keep down what you bolused, it's sometimes a real nightmare. And then kind of explaining that, not so much to the family because that they understand, but to friends where it's like, well, why can't you eat at this restaurant? And then explaining, you know, I don't trust the kitchen that they're going to make my meal safe and, you know, well, that I can eat it. So, just kind of explaining, and like everyone also said, just educating. That's a really, really big thing for new friends.
Do you feel that your friends are empathetic and they understand, or do they like roll their eyes and say you're just being difficult?
For the ones that I've known in high school and who I still keep in contact with today, it's very genuine, very empathetic. For the people who are in my program who I met last year online, I hope that it's genuine. I hope that it's, that it's true emotion, true feeling, that they really do get it. But unfortunately, time will only tell. But again, I'm staying hopeful, I'm staying positive that the friends that I have made online are going to be understanding, both with the diabetes and with the celiac.
And it's a very, it was a very sensitive question I asked. It's just that I've run into a few patients who, they're 14, 15 years old, they're younger, and they're very sensitive, and they've been devastated because their friends clearly don't understand what the journey they're going through and the restrictions that they have with celiac and a few other restrictive eating, just eating issues that they have. And it's just a very hard thing for really people to understand, and they really feel empathetic towards you and say, yeah, okay, let's go to another restaurant. I get it. So that alone can really put a lot of stress on you at that time, if they don't understand, or if they're just, being bullying you or whatever.
Yeah, there have been a few times where people have said, well, just try it, just eat it. It doesn't matter. It's an intolerance. You'll be fine. And I don't do it because I won't be fine. It's not an intolerance. It's an autoimmune. It's an allergy that I won't put my body through that.
Good. So you stay strong and stay. Yeah, good.
Yeah, you define your boundaries and stick to it. And if anyone has a problem, just send them my way. Like, I'm that person where I'll yell at anyone.
Feed them up. Yeah. You're gonna feed them your mother's food, and
just be like, yeah, okay, have fun dealing with this pancreas. Anyways, lastly, Asta.
Yeah, so when it comes to wearing devices, I just don't care anymore. I wear it like it's my superpower because this is something that keeps me alive. It helps me every day, and I will happily wear it where it's like visible. And I also I wear it when it's visible because I want to be able to answer questions if people ask. And I know sometimes they're kind of shy, they don't want to kind of pry, but if I notice someone looking, I will happily launch into a kind of speech about I'm type 1 diabetic, this is what I got to do. And when it comes to like nights out, I think buddy system is really important, to have at least one person who is very in tune with your protocol about if you're low or high or whatever it is. Always going to the bathroom with someone and just being with that buddy, because you never know what could happen. It's very unpredictable. Like, diabetes is already unpredictable, and you throw in the night out and the pandemic and it just amplifies it. So yeah, definitely have a buddy if you can.
Yeah, finding your people, someone who knows your protocol, as you said, someone who has, your fix on standby, whether it be, candies or juice, someone who will gladly yell at someone else if they're being weird that you have an insulin pump. It's important to have those people in your corner. So again, if you have any issues, people send them my way. I'll gladly yell at them on your behalf.
Yay. Okay, are we wrapping up?
Yes, we're wrapping up.
Okay, we're wrapping up. Too bad. This is one of the most casually, fabulously connected panelists I think we've had in ever. It has gone so fast. Do you feel the time has gone fast? It's just gone fast, and it's great. A lot of good kumbaya kind of synergy here. So thank you. Ladies, you're all amazing, and you're wonderful, and you're strong, and I wish you every success in the world. We're just so proud of what you've done and how you're advocates for yourself. And especially, the conversations we had, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for really being personal and up close with us and our audience. I know that there's some wonderful, very valuable information that you shared with everyone. And for those who are going to be listening, who are listening and who will be listening to this, it's going to be very beneficial for them because there's some great takeaways. It's important to note that for those watching tonight, we would like to extend an invitation to our Hope Connects program, which would match you with a mentor, and every panelist here has experienced mentee-mentor relationship. It's been an amazing program. It's helped, especially the kids who are just entering their first year university, sort of a buddy to help them navigate their first year, whether it's online or just someone to talk to. Because there's a lot of things when you're first facing your first transition. So the mentorship program is a definite program that I suggest any of you listeners are interested in. Rab is taking care of it. And I think the next part is for you, Rab.
Yeah, so again, we also urge everyone to go online to the DHF website to look at our transition resource guide. We talked about it a bit earlier, and it features, the accommodation programs for universities and colleges across the provinces. It also includes 360 tips to kind of help guide that transition. And as we also mentioned earlier, we have Transition in the Kitchen coming out, which is a recipe guide which is added to our new transition guide. So there's several recipes there, from breakfast, light lunches, mains, fuel up favorites. They've been approved by a certified dietitian, and all these recipes can be adapted to your dietary restrictions. So for example, I'm vegetarian, but I know looking at some of the more meat-oriented food, what I can kind of swap out with alternatives that suit my needs. And next, Barbara.
If you have any comments, please don't hesitate to email info@diabeteshopefoundation.com. We hope this webinar was helpful for everyone. It certainly was for me. To those watching, we hope you take some positive takeaways from it. Stay tuned to find out when our up and coming webinars will be happening. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening. Stay safe, and God bless you all. And have a great time, ladies. Stay in touch.
Will do.
Okay.